Hello and welcome to Killer Queens, a true crime podcast. I'm your host, Torella.
And I'm your better, prettier, younger host, Tori. We're sisters who are obsessed with true crime.
And love gal-palin with you about cases. You can expect the occasional curse word,
lots of Friends quotes, and all the 90s nostalgia.
To get in on the conversation, check us out at killerqueenspodcast.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at Killer Queens Podcast, and we're on YouTube at Killer Queens, a true crime podcast.
Okay, y'all, grab your Capri Suns or your Surge, and let's talk about some true crime.
Hey, guys.
Hey, guys.
Welcome back.
Woo, woo, woo.
Wow. Pew, 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 pew. Yeah. This is a heavy case, dudes.
Yes.
And we just want to let you know that. We've got some trigger warnings. There is talk of sexual assault of a child and murder of a child. The confessions in this case are very graphic, but we are not going to go into all the details because we just don't think it's needed.
Right. And we want to thank Madison for writing this up.
Yes. And we can thank the person who requested this case. It's me. Thank me.
I'd rather not. No, I'd rather not.
Yeah, now that I did it, it's just a rough case. I mean, I literally don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Putting ourselves through this emotionally, but here we are.
Thanks a lot, Torella.
Exactly. Thanks a lot. It's like when it rains and you blame it on the weatherman.
Yeah.
Bewitched style.
You only have yourself to blame here.
Exactly. Thanks a lot, Tom. It's going to rain all weekend.
Thanks, Marie Calendar.
Exactly.
Is that still a thing? Are we still saying that?
Oh my gosh, I say it all the time.
Okay.
You guys, we'll have to share that in the Facebook group.
Isn't it like already... Hasn't it been shared?
I don't know. I'll share it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep it alive.
Yeah, because like everything is Marie Calendar's fault. Like it is so funny. You guys have to check it out. And if you're not in the Facebook group, hang out with us in there.
Yeah.
Some fun stuff going on in there.
Definitely.
All right.
All right. So around 6 a.m. on November 29th, 2001, Billy Wayne Cope called 911 from his house in Rock Hill, South Carolina. He told the call taker that his 12-year-old daughter was dead. Amanda Cope was laying lifeless on her bed, an obvious victim of sexual assault and a brutal murder. Her father, within a week of the murder, had confessed to the rape and murder of his daughter, not once, not twice, but 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Despite his 3 detailed confessions to police, Billy Wayne Cope denied that he was involved in his daughter's death. Another man's DNA was found on Amanda's body with no physical evidence directly linking him to Amanda's murder. But the state of South Carolina did not budge. They believed that Billy Wayne Cope had welcomed a child murderer into his home that night and gave him his daughter.
Seriously.
I know. Heavy, heavy hitting.
Yeah, it really is. And we know that probably not everybody is listening to this one, and we totally get it. All right, let's talk about Amanda Cope. Amanda Renee Cope was born on April 14th, 1989 to Mary Sue Davis Cope and Billy Wayne Cope in Rock Hill, South Carolina. She was the oldest of 3 girls, with Jessica being the middle child and Kyla being the youngest. The family of 5 lived in a small house that was just under 900 square feet and only had 1 bathroom. Amanda was a bright young girl who seemed to always be in a good mood. She attended Sylvia Circle Elementary School before moving on to Sullivan Middle School. It just drives home like
how young?
We're talking about elementary school, middle school, and like that's as far as she got. The 7th grader was described by her sisters as being intelligent and very loving. And she had an unmatched passion for God and only wanted the best for the people around her. Her laugh was infectious. It always put a smile on everyone's face. Like, you know, those people that have that like infectious laugh.
Oh,
like it makes you
yes.
smile just thinking about it. There are those people, like I remember some people I went to school with, it was like, they just had like the most unique infectious laughs.
Well, yeah. And it makes you laugh as well, which is why they call it infectious, obviously. But it's like, I don't know, what they're saying or what they're doing could not even be funny. But just once I start laughing, you're like, you can't help it.
Yeah, you get tickled. So sweet. Amanda hoped to one day own a farm with horses, and she dreamt of being a large animal veterinarian. In addition to her love for animals, she was very gifted in music. She had a beautiful singing voice, and she played the violin. That's tough to play, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, she's got a lot of talent.
Mm-hmm. I think string instruments in general are very difficult to learn.
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the music teachers at Amanda's middle school remembered the 12-year-old well. Quote, I remember her walking into class, the smile so inquisitive, a girl who wanted to know more with each passing day. Amanda wanted to know more about the world. She wanted to make a unique impact on the world. She would have too. Amanda's mother, Mary Sue, worked an overnight shift at a nearby factory, and her father, Billy, worked part-time delivering chicken. Unfortunately, the money that Mary Sue and Billy earned wasn't always enough to even buy the bare minimum. So Amanda's aunt and Billy's sister, Sue Archie, said that if the family didn't have anything to eat, everyone in the family knew it, and their mother would often buy the family dinner. Despite the hardships that Amanda and her sisters faced, teachers and classmates said that she was, overall, just day in, day out, a positive, happy little girl.
Mm-hmm. And that's a lot to go through at such a young age.
Definitely. And to be able to keep a smile on your face and to also genuinely want the best for other people around you. Like she didn't have this chip on her shoulder or whatever, she just carried herself with such a positive attitude, which is hard to do. Geez, I have a bad day and I'm just like a bitch.
Well, to be fair, you are kind of a bitch all the time.
That's true. So it doesn't take much. Yeah.
No. Yeah. In 1999, when Amanda was about 10 years old, an anonymous call was made to the Department of Social Services about the living conditions in which the Cope girls were living. The family was living in a mobile home that was in absolutely horrible condition. It had no toilet. There were buckets of urine and feces all around the home. There was rotten food everywhere. They had rats. They had insects.
A horrible condition is...
That doesn't begin to cover it,
covers
right?
it, yeah.
Yeah, this was a really, really, really bad living environment. So police charged Billy and Mary Sue with unlawful neglect, to which they both pled guilty. The three girls were placed in foster care until their parents had a suitable environment for them and had attended several counseling sessions. This wasn't the last time that DSS was alerted about the Copes. Years after Amanda's death, her sisters told a news outlet that in the 2 years following them being returned to their parents, things only got worse. So they slept with a ceiling fan no matter what the temperature was outside because the air from the fan moving around the room would scare the cockroaches, keep them away.
I don't have words for that. The fan keeps the cockroaches away.
Right.
I'm sorry. Why can we not clean this house?
I know. And that's the thing. It's it's not just that they didn't have, and I can understand, they didn't have the money. They were struggling, right? But at the very least, you could maybe not just keep piles of garbage.
Exactly. Even if you don't, not every person who struggles financially lives in a shit heap.
Right, exactly. And I understand. Houses are going to get bugs. I get it. I killed a centipede in here just yesterday.
Yeah.
Did it without any fear, didn't even scream, not one time. I just got it. So I understand that every house that you're going to find a bug in it, right? Obviously. But it sounds like this house was infested with cockroaches.
Yeah. And I'm not saying, that it would be, I understand that it's not like they're going to be able to call the bug man out and pay $1,000 to get it, whatever. But you can certainly make a lot of strides by cleaning the place you live in.
Absolutely. Well, the girls had to make small pathways throughout the house to move around the trash, the rotten food, and the mess covering the floors.
This is all on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. That, it doesn't have to be that way.
No.
It's dangerous. It's a wonder that they weren't sick more than they were. And,
Yeah. And Amanda's sisters said that their father remained abusive towards them, which indicated that Billy had tormented his daughters years before. And they said that he had a paddle, which he nicknamed Lucy, that he would use to punish them. So one time, Amanda was covered in bruises from a particularly aggressive punishment. In early 2001, someone at the girls' school called DSS reporting that there were cockroaches crawling from the Cope girls' clothing and backpacks.
That's horrific.
It is. And for a lot of people, and this is maybe neither here nor there, but cockroaches for a lot of people, scariest thing that's imaginable. Even worse than a spider.
Oh,
people hate cockroach. Nobody, I don't know anybody. The only cockroach that I like is the one from WALL-E.
Oh.
Well, he was adorable.
Yeah. And for that to be that's still on their clothes and backpacks and stuff when they are at school. So that's, I mean, it's not
the
just
amount of cockroaches that are in their house. Yeah.
That's really sad.
And can you imagine how embarrassing it is for those girls to go to school?
Yeah. Yeah. We knew a girl who her family didn't have a whole lot of money. I mean, our family didn't either. But she had basically like one pair of jeans that she wore all the time. And I remember one day kids at school making fun of her because they could tell that she'd worn those jeans the day before. Because I guess she'd gotten something on them. And they were making fun of her. And I walked over and I was like, I'm wearing the same jeans I wore yesterday. What? Like,
good for you.
It made me so mad. And I was just like, and I was kind of embarrassed about my clothes, but I was just like, I mean, get over it. Like, because you also will have a tendency to wear, the same stuff that you like and that fits you well. And
well, I don't wash my jeans all that much. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. Yeah. I only have like 2 pairs of jeans that I wear right now.
Right. Like, that's just rude. And that just shows you what kids will do.
Yeah.
When they see something that's, out of the ordinary or see a chance to make fun of a kid for something that they literally cannot help. It's just awful.
Yeah, exactly. On the evening of Wednesday, November 28th, 2001, 12-year-old Amanda was at home with her family. Her 11-year-old sister Jessica was struggling with her math homework, and Amanda volunteered to help her. Billy said that he and his wife agreed to let the girls stay up until Jessica understood her homework. The youngest Cope sister, 7-year-old Kyla, reportedly went to bed around 9 p.m. They stay up very late.
Well, yes, they do. I mean, for a 7-year-old to stay up till 9 is kind of, I know some kids that do it, and I know some kids that go to bed at like 7:30. So, but I do feel like, because, okay, this is a Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday. Yes.
We're guessing
the next day, right?
They have school the next day, unless this is like Thanksgiving. I don't know.
That's true.
It could have been, I don't know. That nobody talks about that the day that they found Amanda, that it was Thanksgiving. Right. I don't know though. But if Billy is allowing Amanda to stay up with her, they stayed up till 1 a.m.
Yes, they didn't go to bed until 1 a.m. And it's like,
why couldn't he do it? Or, it's like, we'll get this, but like tonight's not the night.
Exactly. Like, okay. And Thanksgiving is the 4th. 1, 2, 3.
It's the 3rd one.
Thursday, November 22nd. So Thanksgiving was the week before that. Okay. Yeah, because that's what I was thinking. I was like, they have school the next day. And so they're like, okay, Amanda, you stay up with her until she gets her homework. So now you've got 2 young girls who are up until 1 a.m. working on math homework. And I don't have any hope even that I'm going to be able to help my kids with their math homework by the time they're in 7th grade. Like,
right.
My kindergartner is doing multiplication.
Goodness gracious. And they do it so differently now.
Yeah, they do everything differently.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying, I'm not shaming anybody for not being the one to help their kid with homework because, whatever. But to put that on your 12-year-old daughter and just be like, all right, y'all figure it out. Like,
well, and stay up until it's done. Like,
yeah,
that is just so late. That's what I'm saying. Like, why couldn't we have just been like, you know what? Tonight's not the night. We'll figure it out. Yeah. Maybe we'll work on it this weekend.
Exactly. Like, we'll keep at it, but we need to get rest. And he stayed up too. Billy stayed up. He just didn't appear to help with the homework. I don't know. It's just weird. So he says that a little after 1 o'clock in the morning, everybody in the house was asleep. So Kyla and Jessica shared a room. Amanda had her own. Billy says he remembers waking up around 3 a.m. Some reports say he got up to use the restroom and then he went back to bed. He says that he dreamt that the rapture was happening, thinking that he, a born-again Christian, along with his family, would be saved. In his dream, though, Billy said he was left behind. Okay. When his alarm clock went off at 6 a.m, Billy took off his CPAP mask and went to wake up his children. He said he called Amanda's name, but she didn't answer. And then it's like a Home Alone moment where he's like, I made my family disappear. He's like, did the rapture really happen? Was it not just a dream and it's happened and I've been left behind? No, you didn't. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
It's so strange. Yeah.
But he thought, maybe this really happened and all this stuff. So he walked by the other bedroom and saw Kyla and Jessica asleep, so he knew that it was just a dream. It never actually happened. He said that he called for his oldest daughter again, but she didn't answer, and her bedroom door didn't open. When he went to push her door open, it jammed against her closet door and it wouldn't open. So it was almost like it had been blocked by that closet door. So he ends up kicking the door as hard as he could, and then he finally was able to walk into his daughter's room. He saw Amanda laying face up on her bed, partially dressed, swollen, and covered in bruises. Billy said that he walked over to her, covered her up, and felt how cold she was. So just after 6 a.m., Billy calls 911 and tells them that his daughter is dead. Have you heard this 911 call?
I've not, but I've read it in the Dateline transcripts. Yes.
They actually play it. I'm pretty sure they play it in the Dateline, and I want to grab a clip from it and play it because I feel like it is jarring to hear
how calm he is.
And the phrasing that he uses. He says, "Yeah, my daughter's dead. She's cold as a cucumber." But he's just so matter of fact and says she's cold as a cucumber. And they're like, "Well, don't you want to try CPR or anything?" And he's like, "No, ma'am, she's dead. She's ice cold."
911.
Yeah, my daughter's dead. She's cold as a cucumber.
Okay, you don't want to try to CPR or anything on her?
No, ma'am, she's dead. She's ice cold.
Just like very, very blunt about it.
Well, and kind of unattached, it sounds like. You know what I mean? Like he's not, I don't know. I would expect if he's just found his daughter dead, that's a huge...
Yeah.
So like she was terminally ill.
Right.
You were expecting it. I don't know. It's just so bizarre to me that he's just like, yep. Like, and I don't mean to, this might be off color, but like, be like, yep, she's deader than a doornail.
Yeah. Well, we've heard that in a 911 call before. I think it was probably in a Dateline episode that I watched. I can't remember I don't think we covered this case. I remember there was a guy who found his baby, like maybe 1 year old or less, I don't remember. I mean, it's been a long time ago. His or her crib, I can't remember. And he used that phrase, deader than a doornail. I'm pretty sure that was exactly the phrase they used. Like on a 911 call.
It's just terrible.
Yeah.
And those calls are recorded and you can hear those, like.
But then remember the one that we did, I think we did this on Patreon, but it was a guy had been shot in his bed and it ended up being the girl's ex-boyfriend. He shot him, but not her. And the police thought she did it because she was right next to him and his mom was in town visiting too.
Yes.
But when they interviewed her and the mom, they were both so matter of fact. And he's just been shot dead, right? By this intruder that they don't know. But they were in such shock that they sounded completely detached from the whole situation.
Yeah.
And mentally, I guess they were. It was like their brain is like trying to compartmentalize it.
Yeah. I mean, your body can do a lot of crazy things when you have experienced trauma. So,
yeah. I mean, there are literally like whole years of our life that like you will mention something about and I don't remember at all.
Well, I'm telling you, and I don't know where this is coming from, but my entire second grade, I thought it was a dream the entire time. Like I remember going to school and being like, is this really real right now?
Really?
Like, yeah, I remember parts of it, but I swear every day I was like, this can't be real. Like, I just thought it was a dream.
I mean, so like it definitely, I feel like him being like, she's cold as a cucumber definitely sounds weird.
Well, yeah. And then for him to kind of go on and be like, she's gone to be with the Lord. She's a Christian. I got to go.
Yeah, I really got to go. Like that's definitely going to catch attention of an investigator, just like to use phrasing like that and stuff like that. But that's not evidence.
No. And we'll go on to talk more about more things that are not evidence.
Exactly. So many things that are not evidence. So first responders arrive on scene shortly after the 911 call and saw that Amanda was, in fact, beyond help. When one of the EMTs asked Billy how long she'd been dead, he responded, quote, "for hours." But like, how does he know that? I mean, I guess because she's cold. Like, I don't know. But you know what I mean? Again, a red flag to them.
Well, yeah, absolutely. That's incriminating.
He told them that Amanda had a history of rolling in her sleep and probably choked on a piece of the blanket. That makes no sense.
Mm-mm.
He said that when he found her, there was a piece of her green blanket wrapped around her neck. Detectives arrived on scene and began looking around the house for anything out of the ordinary. But then also, I don't know, I'm going to play like devil's advocate. I'm going to like look at both sides of it. He could be being like, well, I don't know, maybe she choked on her blanket because he knew what happened because he did it and he was trying to deflect, or it's so out of his realm of possibility that she could have been murdered that he's like, I have no idea what could have happened to her.
Yeah, he's just trying
Did she
to
choke on something? I don't know.
piece it together. Yeah.
Exactly. Billy said that no one else had been in the house since they went to bed, and police noted no signs of forced entry, and Jessica said that she and Amanda had locked the doors before they went to bed the night before. And they like were specific about the fact that like they latched, the like chain and like all the stuff. So according to everybody, there's no way anybody got in the house, or they wouldn't think so because they locked the doors.
Right.
The house was in absolute shambles. There was clothing, trash, boxes cluttering the floors throughout the home. There were roaches everywhere. It was difficult to tell if anything was out of place because of how disheveled everything was. There's no way to tell if there's signs of a struggle.
Right.
Like, several of the first responders also commented that Billy was not acting how they would have expected him to be acting with what was going on. They said he was on his computer when they arrived, while Jessica and Kyla were sitting together on the couch. I mean, that is strange, but what was he doing on the computer? I would like to know what he was doing on the computer.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Billy denied hearing any noise during the night, but said that it was probably because of how loud his CPAP mask was, because it's like a machine that it helps to keep you breathing.
If you have sleep apnea, I think.
Yeah. So it does make noise, and I'm sure it almost acts as like a sound machine, I would think.
Yeah. Absolutely. And they got the fans going.
That's true. So I mean that's feasible. Like, it is possible to maybe not hear something,
Sure. I can buy that. I don't know. You know? So when police initially questioned Billy at 8 a.m., he told them that about the three of them staying up late the night before, as well as how he found Amanda that morning. He said that when he found her, she had a strip of her green blanket wrapped around her neck. Billy willingly went with the police to the hospital so they could perform a rape kit and obtain his DNA. He mentioned to them that there may be skin under Amanda's fingernails because she had scratched his back the night before.
Doesn't that seem a little strange?
I think so, but
does he mean like I had an itch and I couldn't reach it?
Well, yeah, it just depends on what kind of scratching we're talking about. I do remember whenever we were younger, Mom would be on the couch. She'd be laying with her legs out, and I would lay on her lap, and she would scratch my back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think that I do that with the boys all the time.
Yeah.
I just, as a 12-year-old, I don't remember sitting there scratching Dad's back for him.
No, because Dad would use the corner of the wall.
Yeah, he was like what is it?
Baloo.
Baloo the bear. Yeah, he would just use the corner and scratch. Or, I mean, I'm pretty sure Mom did. I mean, I'm not saying that like if Dad walked up to me and he was like, hey, I got an itch right here in my back. Can you get it? I mean, I would be like, yeah, sure, scratch it real quick. But I mean, normally he'd have a shirt on.
Yeah.
It's just a strange thing to be like, well, you're going to find my skin under her nails because she scratched my back.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's weird. It's not normal.
No.
I would say. I've never done it to my father. I don't know.
Right.
Police interviewed Billy again around noon, and he told them a similar story as he had earlier, but he added that when Amanda didn't answer that morning, he initially thought that the rapture had occurred. And he said that her death must have been an accident because he didn't hear any noises in the night. Amanda's body was brought to Dr. James Maynard, South Carolina's forensic pathology, for an autopsy. He placed her time of death between 2 and 4 a.m. that morning. He said that her clothing appeared to have been put on by somebody else. Her pants were not pulled up all the way and her bra was unhooked. He found injuries to her head that were consistent with having been hit repeatedly, as well as having been manually strangled. What he did not find were ligature marks, which disproved the theory that Billy had provided that Amanda had accidentally strangled herself with a blanket.
Mm-hmm.
So Dr. Maynard determined that it appeared that Amanda's body had been turned over multiple times after her death. He said that she had injuries that were consistent with a person weighing over 300 pounds kneeling on top of her. And at the time, Billy weighed 385 pounds.
Okay. You know how I feel about consistent with. That means maybe.
Yeah.
Could be.
We think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So take that for what it's worth.
Exactly.
There was clear evidence that Amanda had been sexually assaulted in multiple ways, and Dr. Maynard said that the injuries to her genitals appeared to have been inflicted by a hard object. He found that her hymen was not there, and there were not any remnants to suggest that it had been torn on the night of the murder, suggesting that that evening was not the first time that she'd been sexually abused.
That's another thing that, like, maybe not.
Well, to suggest.
Yeah, but, like, it's not a seal, a freshness seal. That, you know, like when you get a jar of pickles,
Mm-hmm.
and if the seal's broken, don't open this jar of pickles.
Yeah.
That's not what the hymen is. Like,
No.
some people are born, like, I think, aren't some women even born without it? Like,
well, and I've heard of people who don't have one after using tampons.
Or like falling, or
Sure.
like, you know, you can injure yourself. Yeah, there's so many other ways
Yeah.
that can be broken. So again, that's okay. Well, she doesn't have one, and it doesn't seem like it was broken tonight, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not definitive, I guess.
Right. Additionally, she had vaginal irritation that supported prior abuse, and a bite mark was found on her left breast, which was swabbed for DNA. And with these findings, police brought Billy back in for another interview, informing him of some of Dr. Maynard's findings. So they brought Billy back into the police station at 10:50 p.m., and this is less than 24 hours after his daughter had been found murdered. The interview lasted 4 hours, and Cope continued to deny any involvement with Amanda's murder. He said that he had gotten up at 3 a.m. He went to use the bathroom. He only checked on Kyla and Jessica because Amanda's door was closed. The detectives told him that they'd collected saliva and semen from Amanda's body and that they believed it would match him. That's not fair. They don't know.
No,
That's not fair.
they don't know.
No, they haven't gotten the results back yet. So to say, I mean, it's apparently an interrogation tactic, you know, like, we know it was you, but like, they don't.
Exactly. And to say, like, go ahead. We already know. So just tell us. Even
Yeah.
though you've denied it 600 times, just tell us, because we know it's true. Now, do some people deny shit before they confess when they are actually guilty? Of course they do. But in this particular case, there are several interrogation tactics that are used that elicit false confessions.
Mm-hmm.
And they just do.
Yep. It seemed as though the detectives interviewing Billy had already made up their minds that he was guilty. So throughout the 4 hours, Billy denied hurting his daughter almost, like you said, 650 times. Following the interview, Billy was arrested and charged with the murder of his 12-year-old daughter, along with 3 counts of unlawful neglect for the condition of his home that his children were forced to live in. Billy continued to deny any involvement and requested a polygraph. You know how we feel about polygraph tests.
Mm-hmm.
This is some bullshit. So the arrest warrant was granted by a judge based on the fact that Billy was the only adult at home at the time of the murder, and there were no signs of forced entry. So he was officially charged with Amanda's murder at 4:31 a.m. on November 30th. At 10 a.m., Billy was transported to the Moss Justice Center for his requested polygraph test. He waived his constitutional rights, and the examiner proceeded with the test. He asked Billy yes or no questions, like, did you choke Amanda? Did you choke Amanda, causing her to die? Were you in the room when Amanda died? And he answered no to all of the questions. And the examiner scored the test and told Billy that he failed.
Mm-hmm.
He also said that Billy didn't seem very shocked that he'd failed the test. And Billy then asked the examiner if he could have maybe killed her in his sleep. And the examiner said that he didn't think that that was possible. And Billy then said that he must have done it.
Okay. If you are telling somebody over and over and over and over that they did something,
mm-hmm.
these are tactics that they'll use. Hey, look, I'm sure it was an accident. You're a good person. I'm sure it was just tell us what happened and we'll help you out.
Yeah. And then, go a little bit further that says, we know you did it. If you don't confess, you're looking at the death penalty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If we can't help you unless you confess, like that kind of thing. When you have somebody start saying, could I have done this in my sleep and I don't know it?
Well, being interrogated for 4+ hours, multiple times, they are telling you things that are not true, but they're like, well, we've got DNA and we think it's you.
Mm-hmm.
They're telling you all of these things.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
It's just...
It'll make you question
what you remember and what you know.
Exactly. It's gaslighting.
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
Following the failed polygraph test, detectives continued questioning Billy, and it was then that Billy made his first confession to murdering Amanda. He told police that he woke up around 3 a.m. and he went into his daughter's room to masturbate. When she awoke, upset, he jumped on top of her and began hitting her in the head with his fist in a video game that was nearby. He said that he started choking Amanda with both of his hands and her green blanket. Billy then described how he sexually assaulted her with a broom handle. After doing all of this, Billy said he left her there and went back to bed. He then signed his statement and shook hands with the detectives, who reported that they thought that Billy looked relieved. He was taken back to the York County Jail.
I also don't like, I really, really hope that they weren't allowed to use, he looked like he was relieved after he confessed in court.
I mean, they were. But that's the thing, though. And I can't wait till we talk about the trial, because all the things that the judge did not allow in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 days after Billy Wayne Cope made his confession to police, he requested to speak with the same detectives. The following morning, Billy was brought to the sheriff's office, where he made another handwritten statement. His statement read, quote, "I was asleep in my bed. I had a bad dream about an old girlfriend who had an abortion. The thought of her makes me cringe. In my dream, she was telling me I had an abortion with your child, and I told her no. I became so enraged that I got out of bed. All I could hear was that laughing sound. I do not know what came over me, but I snapped and jumped on the bed and straddled Amanda. I hit her in the head and started choking her. I did not know it was my own daughter until after I had sexually assaulted her. I fell back, jarring me to my senses, and I realized it was my daughter. I became so confused that I tried to rid the house of all the stuff that would make me look guilty. I did not know it was my own daughter until I fell backwards. The next morning at 6:03, when my alarm and phone rang out, I was hoping it was a very bad dream." Makes no sense.
No.
Billy agreed to go with detectives to his home so he could walk them through what had happened. At the house, Billy gave the same story he gave in his most recent confession, adding that he'd wrapped the green blanket around her neck to make it look like an accident. Where is this broom handle?
Yeah, exactly. Why didn't they test that?
Why didn't they test it? Yeah.
Right. Well, why didn't they test the video game?
Yeah. All the stuff that he said he used, why was that not tested?
And since they have such tunnel vision on Billy Wayne Cope, they have not looked at any other possible suspects, even though they have DNA.
Mm-hmm.
That's actual evidence.
Exactly. That's actual evidence. Well, thanks for bringing up the DNA. Later that day, Billy was questioned by detectives again, and they told him that semen was found on Amanda during her autopsy. Billy admitted to masturbating into a rag that night and then told police where they could find the rag. They continued to interrogate Billy, which ended in another signed confession. Now he says, "I woke up at about 3 a.m. I went to the bathroom, and then I went into Amanda's room." And then he describes masturbating and then sexually assaulting Amanda while she was sleeping. We are not going to go into the details. "When she woke up, I jumped on top of her to keep her from turning and looking at me, and then I heard her say, 'Daddy, help me.' I started strangling her with my hands. Amanda was pulling at my hands, and I let go and started hitting her in the head, and I went back to strangling her, and she went limp. I got up, saw the green string on the blanket, and was thinking to myself, this would look like she strangled herself. I took the green strip and wrapped it around her neck. I went straight with the wrap from off the floor, and I wrapped it around her throat. I pulled both ends tight. I pulled both ends so it would be good and tight. Her hands were already at her neck, so I left them. Then I fixed the doors of Amanda's bedroom so that they would lock. I pulled the closet door and the door together. That's how I locked it. I did this so the kids would not wake up and see her before morning. I got back into my bed. I put my mask on and went to sleep. And I woke up at 6:02 according to the clock in my bedroom. I sat up and called Amanda twice since I now knew she was not going to answer. It was like a dream. I thought it was a dream. I did not hear from Amanda those 2 times I called her. Thought the rapture had just taken place because I'd just finished reading the Left Behind series about a month ago. I had hoped the rapture had taken place. I was praying that it had. I got up and looked in on Kyla and Jessica, and they were still asleep. I went to Amanda's door, and I forgot I had set the doors, so I pushed on them, and they wouldn't open. I kicked the door open and saw Amanda laying there purple. I walked over to her, and I tried to wake her, and she was cold. I screamed and unwrapped the cord that I put on her neck. Kyla and Jessica walked into the room, and Kyla started screaming. If he closed the door so the girls wouldn't find him, this part doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. And I know that this is a small part, but it's so specific that it doesn't make any sense to me. It was 6:03 at one point. Now it's 6:02.
Yep.
It's just so specific. Why did that change?
Exactly. Jessica said, "Daddy, is she dead?" And I said, "Yes, go get on the couch and pray as hard as you can. And remember one thing, she's with Jesus." I ran to the telephone, which is exactly in front of the computer, and I called 911. I said, "My daughter is dead and she is cold as a cucumber." Reality had not set in. Not until today, 12:03:01, have I realized what I have done. Up until talking with you and the other officer, I blocked stuff out. I'm telling the truth this time. Everything I said before now is not true. And then he continues on. Now he says that around the 1st of October that year, he had started going into Amanda's room at night and sexually abusing her.
That really helps out the prosecution.
It does.
So by the time of Billy's third confession, police had already gotten the results of the DNA swab from the bite mark on Amanda's breast, and the saliva was not a match to Billy.
Mm-mm.
But they didn't tell him that.
Nope. And I mean, in fact, they tell him it is.
Yeah. So when Billy's public defender was finally allowed to see him, because he wasn't at first, he asked Billy why he signed the confession, and Billy told him that the detectives told him that he'd get the death penalty if he didn't sign it. So 11 months after Amanda's murder, a man named James Edward Sanders was arrested on charges of robbery and assault in 4 different homes near the Cope's house. He was a career criminal at 42 years old. He had a long rap sheet. He mostly had robbery and assault charges. He'd been in prison almost as long as he hadn't been. And when police tested Sanders' DNA, they found that it matched the DNA on Amanda's body. And Billy's lawyer said that for one of the first times, he felt relieved. He was like, maybe now the detectives would discount the multiple confessions that his client gave. But that didn't happen. Not only did police still believe that Billy was involved with Amanda's murder, they also thought that Sanders was his accomplice. So they theorized that Billy let Sanders into his home that night. He allowed him to do whatever he wanted to Amanda. And they added the charge of murder to Sanders' list, then charged both of the men with conspiracy. So now they've got an additional charge for both of them. So Billy, meanwhile, denied ever having met Sanders, let alone conspiring with him to commit murder. So when prosecutors were asked how they connected the two men, they said, I mean, clearly, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see this. Sanders' DNA was on Amanda, and being that there were no signs of forced entry in the home, Billy obviously let him in.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Because this is so episodes, 1 through 3 of the Innocence Files.
Yep.
They're like, there's no sign of forced entry. There's no possible way anybody could have gotten this house. And this person bit this little girl 47,000 times. But it turns out it's an easy house to just get into.
Yeah, exactly. And then rather than taking the L and being like, whoops, we messed up here, they're like, clearly they were working together.
Exactly. It's so like, I've talked about it before, the unindicted co-ejaculator. Like,
I was going to say that. that. Yep.
You did it, but it's his semen.
Exactly.
The dynamic duo.
The gruesome twosome. What it doesn't prove is that Billy Wayne Cope is not guilty.
Correct.
What it does is proves that you guys are both guilty. It's just fucked.
Yeah, never mind that we have no evidence that you've ever seen or spoken to each other.
Right. And like we said, or like you said, this house, incredibly easy to break into. Like some of the detectives went when they were doing the walkthrough and they used a credit card to get into the house. Easy peasy.
Yep.
So digging further into Sanders' background, detectives found that he'd been paroled 6 weeks prior to Amanda's murder and moved into his girlfriend's house, which was just about a 5-minute walk from the Cope's. Sanders' DNA was also found at another home about a mile from the Cope house, where a 60-year-old woman was assaulted and raped. A week after that, a woman about 4 miles away had a man break into her house and sexually assault her.
Yeah.
She identified Sanders along with another female who had been assaulted less than a mile from Amanda's house.
Yeah. And also, just by the way, none of these women in any of these cases, they're all like, I don't know how he got into my house. And there was no evidence of forced entry.
No, not at all. Yeah. And this is just a small portion of the women that Sanders was connected to. Yeah. And I mean, like you kind of just said, but I'll say more. In all of these cases, Sanders attacked at night without an accomplice. And there was no evidence that he broke into the house.
Exactly.
Cope said that the reason he never mentioned Sanders in any of his confessions was that he had never met him. He reportedly didn't even recognize him when they met after being housed in the same jail. And Billy said at that meeting that Sanders told him that he lived in his neighborhood, and Billy asked him if he knew who killed his daughter, and said that Sanders responded by just saying, quote, "Let's just say I know you didn't do it."
Mm.
So just 1 month after Amanda's murder, detectives brought his wife, Mary Sue, into the station in hopes of getting more information for them. And at this time, they knew that the DNA did not match Billy, but they told Mary Sue that it matched him and another man who helped him kill Amanda. Liars.
Yeah. Telling her that his semen was found on his daughter. Like, you know, that's definitive science. Like, that's just awful.
Mm-hmm. The conversation was recorded, but oddly enough, the recording given to the defense did not contain the police's questioning. It just had Mary Sue's answers. So Mary Sue's sister and a friend of hers, Amy Simmons, had both become part of the defense team. And they said that Mary Sue did not want to go undercover for the police, but that they showed her the autopsy pictures of Amanda. They showed her Billy's confession, and they threatened her. And she finally agreed, saying that the police told her that if she didn't wear a wire and get Billy to confess, that they'd take her children and put her in jail.
I mean.
And that's a real threat. I mean, why would you have any reason not to believe that they would do that?
Mm-hmm.
Mary Sue, after attempting to get a confession from her husband, told police that she looked her husband in the eye and knew that he didn't do it. So 6 weeks after her wired jailhouse visit to her husband, Mary Sue actually, unfortunately, passed away. She was recovering at Amy's house after a hysterectomy, and she died unexpectedly.
And there's some questions about Amy's involvement there.
Let's talk about Amy.
All right. Soon after Mary Sue's death, the woman who'd been tending to her, this is the same person who had been part of Billy's legal defense team. This is the person who'd been corresponding through lengthy letters with Billy throughout his incarceration. Amy, who is Mary Sue's friend, drops this bomb. She came to both the prosecution and defense and told them that she'd received a letter from Billy confessing yet again. Part of the letter read, "Dear Amy, God told me to tell you that I killed Amanda. Please forgive me. God is going to remove his servant. I just felt you should know. Please don't stop writing. I have to get on with my life." That whole letter, that doesn't make any sense.
And it's incredibly disjointed, don't you think? Like, it doesn't flow.
No.
Like, if you were, I don't know, if you were writing it and it was legit, I think that it doesn't make sense to me. It just does not make any sense.
It doesn't. Disjointed is a very good word for it. So Billy denied writing this letter.
Thank you for the compliment.
You're very welcome. The letter was sent to a handwriting analyst who couldn't tell whether it was a forgery or if it was real. The envelope was clearly addressed by Billy, but his defense team believed that the letter itself was a forgery.
And guess why the letter or the envelope was addressed by Billy?
Why?
Because they had been corresponding before this.
Exactly. So she'd kept all the letters as far as I know. So yeah. So then they find out that while Amy was going to Billy's defense team meetings, she was also meeting with prosecutors and giving them information about his defense.
Can't ride two horses with one ass, girlfriend.
You cannot. How is that not like mistrial? I mean, I don't know. I guess trial hasn't started, but like.
Well, but at the very least, like, it should be, I would feel like any of her testimony should be inadmissible at that point because
100%.
She's playing both sides.
Yeah, exactly.
She's not trustworthy.
No. So obviously the defense team is like, oh my God, like what is happening? So they start looking into her and they found out that she was once suspended from her job as a nurse for forgeries that she'd committed. So she's got a history of it.
Yep.
She'd pled guilty to obstruction of justice and obtaining drugs by false pretenses in another country. She'd also been under investigation because a nursing home patient under her care died of a supposed insulin overdose.
Who else died in her care?
Exactly.
I'm thinking. Yeah.
Exactly. The defense team began reading through all of Billy's old letters, and they found the exact same phrases used in his confession letter to Amy. And they were ultimately able to find that his entire confession letter appeared to have been built from phrases from his other letters. And like we said, this letter does not flow. Which would make sense if she's just like, oh, he wrote this sentence in this one, this sentence in this
Right.
one, and is trying
Just
to
cherry
copy it.
picking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the discovery was brought back to the handwriting analyst, who finally felt confident calling the letter a forgery.
So now we're going to get into the trial.
Mhm.
The state of South Carolina decided on a joint trial, sending both Billy and Sanders to court together, reasoning that because they believed Billy had set Sanders up to murder Amanda, they should be tried together.
Yeah.
How did they get to this conclusion?
Again, they're trying them together because they conspired, quote, together, but there is literally not one iota of evidence that shows that they even knew each other.
Well, and that's the thing. This is what pisses me off so bad about trials like this is the prosecution can pull literally something out of their rear, out of their keister, and they don't have to have no burden of proof. They don't have to prove it at all. So but then the defense does. They have to go completely overboard to try to disprove it.
Yeah.
It's just so unfair.
Yeah.
Okay. So after finding out that he was going to be tried with Billy, Sanders wrote a letter to the prosecutors asking, quote, "Why are you trying me with this man Cope? I don't even know a Cope." The defense team felt that surely the trial couldn't continue with the same assumption of Billy assisting Sanders. And Sanders claimed to have never met the man, but in late 2004, Billy Cope and James Sanders went to trial for the murder of Amanda Cope. Billy's defense team brought in many victims of Sanders, hoping to prove hoping to prove that he had a pattern for how he committed crimes, which did not include a partner, and that he was a serial rapist. And the prosecution argued that Sanders' other crimes did not ever involve children or murder. So regardless of these arguments, the judge ruled that Sanders' other crimes were not admissible in this trial because the facts were different.
Okay.
Jurors didn't get to hear any of that.
No, they didn't. And okay, so we know that Sanders has broken into many homes in that area within walking distance, and he's raped many women.
Right.
Those women happen to have been home alone. I understand that the facts are, quote, different in some ways, where this was a child, not an adult.
And a murder, and not just, and you know what I mean when I say just a...
Yes. But we also do know that because rape is a violent crime. It's a very violent crime. And it does escalate. It can escalate. The other thing is, what if he breaks into this house, finds Amanda, and she says, "My dad is home. He's going to hear this and he's going to kick your ass," or something, like my dad's going to come in here or something.
Right.
What if he kills her because he doesn't realize before he gets into the house that there's a bunch of other people in the house? Like, it's not exactly the same, but it's pretty fucking close.
Well, and this is not the police being like, or the defense being like, we think he has committed these other crimes. He did.
Yeah.
Commit these other crimes.
And we don't know, but it doesn't sound like he's casing places before he commits a crime. It sounds like he's just out wandering around and tries doorknobs and tries doors and windows and sees if he can get in, and whoever's in there, like, I don't know that he's like watching the Cope house and being like, oh,
like casing him. And
yeah, there's,
absolutely.
There's a lot of people living there, because he probably wouldn't have broken into that house if that had been the case.
Well, sure. And also, like I was saying about, it's not like we don't know that he did all these other crimes. It's also like we don't know that he had left DNA on Amanda. Like, it's 100% his DNA.
Yeah. The semen and the bite mark swab match him and him alone.
Absolutely. Yes.
They don't match anybody else.
So tell me how you can't, there's not a connection between, like, because like you said, I mean, violent sexual assaults, a lot of times it's like a gateway crime. Like, you don't stop there.
No.
Not always, but a lot of times.
What have we seen time and time again where sexual predators who go to jail for rape, what do they learn time and time again? Israel Keys did the same thing when either he got busted or he thought he was going to get busted, but they learn you don't leave a witness alive.
Yeah, you get better at it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You don't leave them alive because they can testify against you.
Yep. He also said that a false confession expert that was brought in by defense could not reference any other false confessions he knew about that produced wrongful convictions in other cases. So
perfect.
They're like, you can't have anything here. Yeah. Not even papers.
No defense for yourself.
Right. So Billy took the stand in his own defense, saying that his confessions were only given because of the polygraph results and the police coercion. And he said that he lied initially in hopes of establishing an insanity plea. The prosecution said that even with this argument, Billy was not interrogated nonstop. In fact, he had spent a weekend in jail after his first confession, then requested to meet with police again to confess again.
Okay, but here's what he was working with in the case law, or what is it? It's find case law. Find law. They have the court documents in there. They said that the false confession expert found 5 techniques that they used that produce false confessions. 1, false evidence, the officers telling Cope that he'd failed the polygraph when he had not. 2, positive confrontation, the officers claiming that they knew Cope did it before he ever confessed. 3, the officers' refusals to accept Cope's denials of guilt, even though he agreed to a polygraph and waived an attorney. Because again, he did deny it over 650 times before he confessed, but that was not acceptable to them.
See, that's so unfair, because why did they not believe him 650 times until he gave them the answer they wanted?
Exactly. And then he said, yeah, I did it, and now we believe that. Even though the evidence doesn't, where's this broom handle? Where's the evidence on that? Why is his semen not on her? Why is his DNA not on her?
Absolutely.
4, minimization, the officer suggesting the crime was accidental. And we see this time and time again. When officers get denial, then they'll say, well, you're a good person, and this is probably an accident. Maybe she fell down. I don't know. And you just didn't want to call because, the previous DSS complaint.
I'm thinking of second season Devil You Know, Sherry Schreiner and Barbara.
Yes.
She was interrogated for 19 hours straight.
And it was very late at night too. She hadn't gone to bed yet.
Yes. And she was they were well, do you think maybe it was an accident? She's I mean, I guess I could have done it on accident. I guess I could have been standing. I guess I could have been, you know.
Exactly. And 5, interrogation while Cope was traumatized and tired. So even though he had a couple days in between or whatever, he's still in a state of emotional trauma. And he's also now starting to question his own reality. And to me, him asking the question, could I have done this while I was asleep? Could I have done this and not remember it and not have been conscious for it? That tells me he has no idea what's real anymore.
Right. And also, I just really believe, I don't know the way that he asked, and what do I know? But along with other things that are part of this case, that to me points a lot to his innocence. Because why would he implicate himself in it if he actually had done it maliciously? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And why would he say, I didn't hear anybody in the house. I didn't hear anything going on.
If he had an accomplice, why not be yeah, he fucking did it?
Or, if he knew somebody was in there, he could have just blamed it on that guy. Or, why would he be I don't know. I mean, I guess she just choked on her blanket. When if you know full well she was strangled and beaten, then the police are going to catch that in 5 seconds and be well, that didn't happen. Why is he they're going to figure out something else happened. So it would behoove him, it seems to be yeah, it looks like somebody broke in or something. But he was I mean, no, we locked the door. I don't think anybody came in.
Yeah. Both Jessica and Kyla were brought in to testify by the state. And Kyla said that she heard someone scream and gasp for air in the middle of the night, but assumed it was a dream and went back to sleep. Jessica said that she and Amanda had worked on her math homework until about 1 a.m. Then they went to bed and made sure that they turned off all the lights and locked the front door, including the chain latch. Billy testified that once he was in jail, he realized that he had falsely confessed. So he tried to invent another story with the intent of the police thinking he was crazy. And he said that police continued to threaten him with the death penalty until he told them the truth. And by then, he said he didn't care what happened anymore, and he signed anything that he was given. On the night of September 22nd, 2004, the jury came back with a unanimous verdict against Billy and Sanders. Murder, 2 counts of first-degree criminal conduct, criminal conspiracy to commit criminal sexual conduct, and unlawful conduct towards a child. They were both sentenced to life in prison with additional sentences of 30 years each.
So Billy's defense team filed multiple appeals stating that his confession should have been thrown out, that he did not receive a fair trial, especially having been tried with the man whose DNA was found on Amanda. It still bothers me so much because there was nothing that the prosecution provided during this trial that said, and here is evidence that Billy Cope and Sanders knew each other, they texted each other, they called each other, they emailed each other, like nothing.
Yeah, it should be beyond a reasonable doubt, and that did not prove it.
Yeah. I mean, as far as I know, I don't have the entire trial transcript, but
you would think that we would hear an inkling of something if they
exactly.
had.
Yeah. Well, in fact, they did know each other, and this is how we know that.
Yeah.
No. The only thing that they have is Amy Simmons.
Who is a known liar and has actually, in fact, been arrested for it. So
yeah, and commits forgery and stuff.
Well, that's what kind of I put forgery under the lying category. But anyway.
In April of 2022, for the first time since the trial, Kyla and Jessica Cope spoke with the media, writing a letter to the Herald. They wrote about the paddle that their father used to beat them with and the constant abuse that they endured, particularly Amanda. Now, this is horrific. And he should have been in jail, for child abuse. Like, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with him going to jail for child abuse.
Well, absolutely. And I think, too, I mean, I don't know if the kid should have been taken away permanently, but the family didn't clean up their act after.
No, they didn't. They didn't do anything. I mean, obviously, the house was still a wreck. There was still no freaking toilet in the house. There were still buckets of piss and shit everywhere.
Yeah, rotten food, like
cockroaches coming out of their backpacks. Like, why did we return these children to this home in that condition?
Or not, at the very least, not checked up on them. Yeah. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. What is your job? Yeah. And I understand they have a lot to do and stuff like that. Like, I'm just saying, it's a fucked up system. They said that they lived in a filthy home, but that Billy always made sure that his computer and desk were clean and in good shape, despite that his daughters were living without a toilet at some times. Both girls were upfront, saying that Billy physically and sexually abused all three of his daughters. And in their statement, the two sisters wrote, quote, "During the past 13 years, Billy has told a string of lies that has shaped him into the victim. The world is forgetting that a 12-year-old child lost her life. She is the victim, not him. What the world didn't get to know was that Amanda was an intelligent and loving girl whose passion for God was remarkable. All Amanda Cope wanted in life was to be happy. She wanted a farm and horses and to be a large animal veterinarian. She touched the hearts of many with her beautiful abilities to sing and play the violin, and eventually wanted to marry, have children, and to travel the world. She had a contagious laugh, which she used to make everyone who knew her smile. She's the one that missed out on life, not Billy Cope." And one of my biggest and again, we don't know for sure, but it seems like the evidence points to Sanders having done this of his own accord without an accomplice, and Billy maybe not knowing it happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
But one of the biggest problems with wrongful conviction is, of course, somebody who, didn't do something is being punished for it. But furthermore, the victim of that crime typically does get lost because the story becomes about the person who's in jail.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you've got this ripple effect of so many additional victims, and then not real justice for the victim.
Exactly. And should he have been in jail for his child abuse? If he was physically, sexually abusing these children, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, with all the bruises that they had before this ever even happened, maybe he should have been in jail for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have any problems with that. But it just, if you look at the evidence, it seems like, can we convict him for the shit he did?
Right, absolutely.
I'm fine with that.
Well, it just seems like the police, the investigators, the prosecution, they kind of all bullied him into...
And if it can happen to Billy Wayne Cope, it can happen to anybody. I mean, that's the scary part. I don't care if he's in jail. I'm not sad about him being in jail. He needed to be in jail. But this happens to many people. And it shouldn't. Like, the whole reason we're supposed to have checks and balances. And like, okay, somebody can confess to something all they want, but if the evidence doesn't match that, because people do falsely confess. So it's just like...
Well, and I really believe that we need to, and we've talked about stuff that this needs to change. Something needs to change here. I don't know necessarily what that exactly looks like, but maybe we need to have some different interrogation tactics.
Yeah. Because the goal of interrogation is not the truth, it is a confession.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that they do is geared toward a confession. Well, not everybody you interrogate is going to be guilty.
Right, absolutely.
So,
and they don't care.
Yeah, and for prosecutors, our goal should be the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Not, I need that W to make my record look good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've caught a little flack for like people saying that, we're negative about prosecutors and law enforcement and stuff. We're not negative about all of them, but when there is prosecutorial misconduct and when there are unethical interrogation tactics being used, that's where we have a problem.
Yeah, and the thing about making a change is to not talk about it isn't going to do anything.
Right. Yeah. There has to be something. And, this is, I think, what we can do as people who are interested in true crime. One of the biggest things that we can do is to vote.
Absolutely.
In our local elections, do research on your judges, do research on your prosecutors. Yeah. And find out what kinds of, wins they've gotten and how did they go about that? Are they under investigation for prosecutorial misconduct? Like, those kind of things. Like, look into it and vote for people who are going to do their job honestly, which, I know in politics that's tough to find, but I don't know. It's just one thing that we can do because we see these injustices happen. And again, I'm not saying it's an injustice against Billy Cope. It's an injustice against Amanda Cope. I mean, Sanders is in jail and that's where he needs to be because he clearly did this.
Mm-hmm.
But it still, in a way, tarnishes her justice somewhat because they never looked for him.
Right.
So it could very easily have been just Billy Wayne Cope that went to jail and Sanders stays out and does this to somebody else.
Well, yeah. And I mean, even look at this episode that we've just done. And I love how it was written. I think it's nothing against like the notes or anything like that, or even against, not the case. I don't know how to say it, but we didn't spend a ton of time talking about Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
We spent the majority of it talking about, did Billy Wayne get a good shake or not?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's frustrating
mm-hmm.
because these types of situations create that outcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. On Thursday, February 9th, 2017, Billy Wayne Cope died of natural causes in prison. He maintained his innocence throughout his incarceration, and Sanders will also die in prison.
Mm.
And that's the end.
That's tough, man.
Yeah. It's always really tough with children.
Absolutely. And of course, if you made it through this one, which we understand if you couldn't do it, I totally get it. We want to know what you guys think.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you think? Because I've seen kind of all over the board out there. There are people who think he's guilty, people who think he's not. I'm not totally sure, but just the evidence that they have, I feel like points to Sanders and points to them not knowing each other.
Yeah, because I mean, Sanders said it too. So,
mm-hmm. But yeah, let us know what you guys think.
Yeah, and thank you guys so much for listening. We will catch you on the next episode. We love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, you guys, before we go today, we got some more shout outs. Whoop, 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 whoop. Yeah, can we get a hey girl thanks to Jessica Carver,
Kendra White,
Kelly Schwamb,
Jessica Jenkins,
Ashley Lipwies, sorry,
Caitlin Michaels,
Brittany Caraway,
Kathy Garcia,
Audrey Bragg,
Shannon Whitesides,
Ruth Carter,
Kelly Takao,
Samaria McKnight,
Lena Esty,
Lauren Pilak,
Jessica Montpelier,
Kayla Mullins,
Beth Summerfield,
Emma Cummings Kruger,
Becky Hahn,
Mara Victoria,
Maddie Swain,
Morgan Sawyer,
Britta Carper,
Kelsey Ross,
Julia Klaus,
Catherine Howard,
Courtney Jones,
Gracie Hancock,
Ariel Wheeler,
Kelly Latham,
Renee Bertrand,
Alicia Altman,
Tabitha,
Rebecca Benson,
Nana Montrose,
Christine Pfluger,
Danielle Hercules,
Pamela Coburn,
Madison Blevins,
Sarah Stewart,
Danielle Castaneda,
Jenica Elder,
Marnie,
Andy Smith,
and Ashley Wright.
Thank you guys so much. And if you want your very own shout out, join our Patreon at the $10 level and or higher.
Yay. Thank you guys so much. We love you.
We love you. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this case. Connect with us on Instagram or Facebook to continue the conversation.
Thanks for listening, and we will meet you back here next week.
Bye!
The theme song for the show is created and composed by Stephen Toby. You can find more of Stephen's work on SoundCloud.
Our logo was created by Sloan Williams of Sophisticated Crayon. You can find more of her work on Etsy. Visit us at killerqueenspodcast.com for merch and other info about the show.